The Calgary Flames have locked in a key piece of their franchise for a really long time. I would love to be hot take guy and say, and this is why they screwed it up. I can't. This is a home run on all accounts. Let's talk about Dustin Wolf staying a Calgary Flame. Dustin Wolf is a member of the Calgary Flames now and will be for a really long time, signing a 7-year contract worth $7.75 million a season. Going to look at this from all angles, as we do, but this is a home run for the Calgary Flames. Toxic in the chat before doing a wellness check when the intro music was playing a little bit too long. But Toxic saying it's a great deal for both parties. I completely agree with Toxic on this one in the Twitch chat. That this is a phenomenal move for the Flames. I just think this kid at every level has shown that he is a high-level goaltender. He has thrived, he has faced adversity, and he has learned from that and grown from that. Figuratively, not literally. But he has done a really good job, I think, of checking every box that you would want to see from a franchise goaltender. The first part of that is he is obviously very talented, right? Like that is the first and biggest part of this one, is that talking about, oh, he's shown that he can grow and learn from adversity and all that. You also have to be good, right? Like there has to be a base level of this guy can play the sport, and he does that at a really high level. This is a dude who is going to get Vezina votes regularly throughout his career if he can continue to play at that high level. But it is not just like, okay, this guy is very good. You also see, like I said before, what he does when there's a bit of a speed wobble. And 2 years ago, it was a weird situation. He came in, didn't play for a couple weeks, got thrown to the, pardon the pun, Wolves, and didn't look great. And then he's there as kind of the backup to Jacob Markstrom, who's super pissed that he's still in Calgary after they asked him to waive his no move. So it was a strange situation and he wasn't great. But there was also some tactical things that he wasn't doing very well. And I think he recovered on that. I think he showed the athleticism that he has. I think that he showed the intelligence and awareness to grow from the mistakes that he had and learn from them for last year. So you know that even if you have one of the league has figured him out moments, that this kid is still going to be able to then counterpunch and figure it out himself. So I think it is a great deal. I think it is a really, really smart move for the Calgary Flames here. We have Connor D in the chat asking, PK, I love the new Wolf deal. What do you think of his partner this season being a goalie with less games played than him? Only a second-year goalie, and he's the vet. That's my concern. I think there's a little bit there. I don't think that is an invalid take, Connor D, by any stretch of the imagination. I do like having, I guess, quote unquote, an adult in the room. That is something that I have talked about a lot in having like a Vladar there, or bringing in someone else who has quite a bit of experience for Calgary. So I can see where there would be a bit of a hesitation with having him be the veteran now after one season. I do think he is quite mature, and I think he has kind of taken to this quite well. And I would suggest that the coaching staff that they have can kind of help guide him along as well. But no, that like there is certainly a bit of you would kind of prefer there to be a mentor there, because the one thing that he hasn't really dealt with is being the guy when it goes sideways, right? Because when it was going sideways with Markstrom a couple of years ago, it was Markstrom. And last year, he was keeping him in it right to the end. This year, I don't anticipate that being a thing. And so it's one thing when you're young and you have a save percentage of 910 and you're winning games and you're in a playoff race. But when you're young and you have a save percentage of 903 and the team's getting their head caved in, that becomes a problem. So I can see where that having a veteran there to be like, hey man, not your fault. Not your fault. It's not. Look what's in front of you. It ain't your fault. The team hasn't scored 3 goals in a month. Not on you, my guy. So hopefully the veteran leadership that is in Calgary will help him with that. But yes, it would be beneficial to have someone with a bit more experience than either a Cooley or Prevetsov along for the ride. I think for Calgary, tactically, Having a backup goalie who stole games for you a season ago is annoying as hell when you're trying to tank. So I do think there is a little bit of that of, hey, can we just lock in the non-Wolf games? Can we do that? That would be awesome. I appreciate that. Jay Smells in the YouTube chat asking a fantasy football question. We'll get to the fantasy football in a second. I just, for my ease of editing all this stuff, I want to stick with the hockey first, and then we'll get to the fantasy football question here in just a moment. But back on this side of it, back on the Flames side of this deal, I think looking at how, again, Toxic's point, the mental makeup of Wolf. Yes, 100%. This guy has got it kind of locked in between the ears. I think he's great in that sense. And he's obviously very talented, all of those things. There is a very real chance he spends almost the entirety of this contract being underpaid, right? Like there is a world where he is elite level goaltender for 7 seasons, and this looks like one of the best contracts in the NHL. Now, we do have to look, as little fun as it is, we do have to look at what worst case scenario could look like with this contract. And let's say, like, obviously worst case scenario is injury and something catastrophic happening. But from a hockey standpoint, let's say like injury problems become a thing. He is a slight human and plays a contact sport, albeit one where his position doesn't allow for much contact. But still, there's not a lot to him. Injuries can happen. Or maybe the league does figure him out or something else. And it's just, he ends up being not as good. And the rookie season is the best that we see from him. If that happens, with the salary cap going up, I just don't think that this contract is going to be an albatross for this team at $7.75 million. So I think it's great. I think if the player reaches the high end, which is more likely than not, if he reaches the high end, this is a steal of a deal. If he stays at what we think his median could be, it's a perfect contract. And if he sucks, it's fine. It's not going to kill you. And he has already shown enough potential, quite frankly, that if we're a few years into this thing and Calgary is starting to come on, the combination of Gavin McKenna and Zane Parekh is lighting the world on fire for the Flames, then, but the goalie is a problem. He showed enough potential that you could trade him to a coming out of a rebuild team that's like, oh, well, we can fix him or something like that. Like, I don't see any downside in this for the Calgary Flames. The other aspect of it, I do think there is a little bit of importance that this is an American-born dude who can be a superstar who wants to stay in Calgary. And I remember when Gaudreau and Tkachuk left, and some of the talk was, let's not draft American-born players here because there's something here that they don't want to stick around and they just want to get out of here and whatever. So had a pretty good run with Swedes, some pretty good Finns of the past, Canadians, obviously. Let's just stick with that. Let's go there and not worry about our neighbors to the south. I can see where people are coming from on that. I think that's a little overblown, and I think this is an example of why, where you can keep stars in Calgary, and just because the birth certificate or the passport may not line up with the postal code or area code or whatever, zip code, that's what y'all do down there, it still doesn't mean that he's going to want to leave automatically. I think that kind of talk can get overblown substantially, right? So I do think that to quiet that conversation, to kind of make everyone shut up about the American players don't want to be here and everything like that, to get this done, it feels good. And then for Dustin Wolf, it's security, right? Like, it's an organization that has put a lot of focus on him, made him feel very important, and put a lot into his development. And again, it's security at a very good rate for a guy in a sport where injuries happen. So I just think it makes all the sense in the world. Obviously, the next thing up on the agenda for Calgary is a Rasmus Andersson move. I still don't think that this gets to opening day. I have kind of said before that the talk of, we can let this drag into the season is a negotiation tactic. I don't think it makes a lick of sense to let this drag out that long. I would much rather have all the different pieces in place for the young Calgary Flames. Now, maybe the Zane Parekh injury that he's dealing with right now changes that math a little bit, but I still think that that's a deal that has to get done. And then you do have the decision to be made around Michael Backlund's contract and what you do with that player who is your captain, who has been one of the veterans in the locker room for a very long time, but might want a chance to play meaningful games, and I don't know if you're going to be doing that while he is still an effective player on your hockey team. So some decisions to be made for Calgary, but they have done some very tidy work in locking in some very key pieces of the franchise moving forward. That we're going to have quite a bit more hockey talk throughout the stream, so keep your hockey questions coming. Anything you want to do, just send them off into the chat and we can talk about it. As I said with the fantasy football question that came in, I tend to, if we're not talking about that, just because I'm editing and all that, I'll finish what we're talking about, and then we can get to any questions you may have. But keep them coming in the chat. Those are always greatly appreciated. And while you're at it, make sure you share this video with your friends. I love doing these. I love doing these live, and I really enjoy the conversations that we get to have with the chat and everything like that. And I very much appreciate everyone who is watching. I just wish y'all had more people to chat with in here. So send them off, send the videos off when we're live. That would help me out a great deal. And if you're listening in podcast form or watching this after, fire them away and send it to some people you like and a couple people you don't, just to mess with them a little bit. But that would really help out with Couch Potato Diary.